Alright. We have a pair of Magneti Marelli. Not that you can see it, but they're S138B distributors. Off of a 1971 Ferrari 365 GTB4 Daytona with the Columbo V12 dual overhead cam. Now, before I get started on these, I kind of made my own test bench so I could check the degree between the points opening and make sure I'm at the #1 pole. With all the research I found, everything for this American version car isn't, I'm going to say what it should be. I've seen 4 different cars in person. 2 of them had one style, another one had a third style, and then this style. The American made car is supposed to have an air injection system with the high intensity ignition with an anti-hop device to coincide with the air injection system. This car does not have any wiring to support an anti-hop device. I can only think that maybe it was they were starting to build it as a Euro car, and maybe the they had a change order for it to be an American car. Maybe they already had the wiring in it, and when they decided to put the air injection system in, I don't know. It has the micro switch on the throttle lever on passenger side rear rocker cover, cam cover. It does not have an anti-hop device nor any of the wiring for it. The illustrations that you see in all the books, American or not, all show the anti-hop device in line with the system. And as you can see, they got the wiring going to that, then to the switch, and then to R2. They have the coils going right to ground. Well, we all know contact points aren't going to break if the coil is constantly grounded. All your references that you find online are for 3-lobe distributors, which I'm assuming are probably for the single overhead cam V12s, or for like your 308s and things like that. The 3-lobe cams have 2 points. One set operates 3 cylinders, the other set operates the other 3 cylinders to get your 6 cylinders. These basically do the same thing, except both sets of points control all 6 cylinders. One set controls under 3,000 RPMs, another set controls over 3,000 RPMs. You have R1 and R2. R1 is your primary, and that is over 3,000 RPMs. R2 is your secondary, and it's under 3,000 RPMs. Now, these did have electronic ignition in them. The problem to me, even though electronic ignition is more consistent, it does not give you the timing changes that they were originally set up for. 950 RPMs with the micro switch in play, R2 is operating, and they want to see your base timing at 3 degrees after top dead center. Over 3,000 RPMs, they want to see the base timing. Well, go back to the original setup. When you're at idle and you're checking the timing on them, with the micro switch hooked up at 950 RPMs, they want to see 3 degrees of timing. If you disconnect the micro switch, they want to see 11 degrees before top dead center. And that is the R1 circuit. When the switch comes back on the play, it wants to go back to 3 degrees after top dead center. That micro switch is controlled by a lever on the throttle rod, so when you depress the throttle and it gets to 3,000 RPMs, the micro switch opens and it changes the set of points that's being used to control the ignition. It changes it 7 degrees of distributor angle to create 14 degrees of timing difference. So once you hit that 3,000 RPMs, it's instantly adding 14 degrees of timing. Even though on the bench it will only show 7 degrees, but that's how they want you to set it up. So the diagrams in your books for the US versions are not accurate for a car that does not have an anti-hop device. And the diagram that they do have for the 12-point or 6 lobe rotors would work for a European car that doesn't have any of the pollution controls like the American cars have. So if you're going by their 6-lobe distributor cam, this wiring would actually be incorrect with the way it's going. It would have to go from the coil to the resistor to R1. R1 goes to the switch, and then switch goes back to R2. When the switch opens, R2's out of the play and it operates of R1. When you come off or back down to idle, the switch closes and it puts R2 in. So that way they're still running in their parallel circuit to get their timing changes. On the passenger side I've already set up. Driver side I have not. So we'll put that in there and we'll see what we got to do. There is an adjustment plate at the bottom. The bottom square lobes go into your distributor base, which is mounted to the back of the head in alignment with the camshaft. If your rotor is not pointing at its index mark, you're able to loosen the two 10mm nuts and either advance or retard your rotor position to get it to line up, and then you tighten them back up. I have that in a neutral position right now, and when I get that back to the car, I can get this on here. We'll see what we got to do. So we'll put it with our number 1 facing up. It should be there. In the book, they show a single unit using a test light. You can do this with a 6-volt battery, 12-volt battery, whichever, it don't matter. I just made a temporary degree wheel out of a piece of cardboard. Purple marks recommend 5-degree intervals, and the black lines are 1-degree intervals. Modified an old rotor with a pointer so that I'm able to index. We have our R1, or primary indicator light, and our R2, secondary indicator light. And to simulate the micro switch, after I have the gap set, we'll just use a jumper wire. Power on. Okay, we got one that's not closing at all, one that's not opening at all. Alright, so now let's set our point gap. They want a point gap of I believe it's 35 millimeters, which is 14 thousandths. So we'll get them close. You can see there it's opening and closing now. Now we'll set our gap. I couldn't do that again if I tried. Right on the 14. Take it down. See there, it moved a little bit when I tightened it up. go, 14, I believe. Let's make sure we're still opening and closing. We are. Alright, that one set at 14 thousandths or 35 millimeters. Now, let's get our second set. Not even close, not even moving. Alright. Let's see where they're at. A little loose. Tight. Alright, 14. Alright. It's a little snug. Okay, now let's make sure they both open and close. They do. Okay. Okay, so now you can see our one plate, our number one indicator. It's not opening until we're about 8 degrees past our contact point. So now what we need to do is rotate that plate that holds them points counterclockwise to move the point cam closer to the lobe, which will put it closer to the number one pole. Try there first. We're still about 5 degrees off. Alright, right there at number one position. If you get it right on that, remember you still have your all your timing and stuff that you can adjust when it's on the car. So I try to get it as close to that as possible. But on R1 right there, I would say that's actually before top dead center. So that would probably be pretty close to my 11 degrees. Okay, now let's see where the second set opens. So right there it starts. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So we're at 12 thousandths before it opens. So now we need to move the R2 or secondary points counterclockwise to get it closer to the cam lobe to open, which puts the two in correlation. So with that one, we're at 12, and we want 7 degrees. They want to see 7 degrees. I apologize if I said 5 degrees earlier. I may have. It's not 5 degrees, it's 7 degrees of distributor opening. So there we are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, we're at 8 degrees. Let's see if we can get one more out of it. I've pretty much maxed. We'll see if we can get one more degree. I suppose pretty close. Yeah. I mean, nice little metal splinter all of a sudden. That always helps, doesn't it? Got me a nice little piece of metal stuck in there. Something. Don't know what. In case you don't know. Tape works pretty good, but I think it's got to be duct tape. This one's not wanting to cooperate. So anyway, alright, so let's see where we're at now. Hate that, in the middle of this, and you get a splinter. Here we go. So there we got one, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Almost 8. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Alright, I think we're good right there. That's right about the 7 degrees. So now that you got them indexed that they're 7 degrees apart between on and off, see, come back on, we'll cycle with each one. That gives you your correlation there for your 7 degrees. So now it's on the car and the whole system's hooked up. It's in the micro switch. Yellow wire will represent the micro switch. We'll go here, we'll go here. Now you're not going to be able to see it on the camera, but right there, R1 points are open. They're open. Circuit is still intact. Go to the 7 degrees, the secondary set of points opens up, breaks the circuit, the ignition coil fires. Go back on, go down to the next one, okay, point R1's open, lights still on, get to 7 degrees, secondary set takes it off. That's your idle circuit up to 3,000 RPMs. They want it operating off of R2. Okay. When you get over the 3,000 RPMs, the throttle rod is going to release the micro switch. When it releases the micro switch, it takes this set of points out of the system. Now your ignition is running over 3,000 RPMs and it's working on the primary. And as you can see, it's opening just before contact, so that will be put it before the top dead center mark. So now you're running on that one. Now you get back down to idle, or you let off the throttle, it brings your R2 contact points back into play. Again, R1 is not functioning until you hit R2. When you get to the point where R2 opens, it breaks the circuit. That's about the only way I can really describe it. Took me a while to figure this out on this scenario with this car, because there wasn't any other cars out there that I could compare it to that had the anti-hop device for these dual point distributors with the 6 lobe distributor cams. You know, if you read through their circuitry and their manual, it tells you how they want it to run. Secondary R2 breaker point retards of 7 degrees distributor in comparison to the primary breaker point. To adjust, it is possible to use proper system of screws and holes in the distributor casing The ignition impulse is generated from the R1 or R2 breaker point according to the movement of the micro switch, which is controlled by the carburetor lever shaft. The distributor does not require special maintenance. Time the distributor as a normal one, provided the micro switch has been disconnected at 950 to 1000 RPMs of idling engine. The timing will be 11 degrees of engine before top dead center. That's with the micro switch disconnected. Okay, so that would be in this position. They would want to see 11 degrees. So if I'm hitting before the pole, that would be before top dead center. With the micro switch connected and well adjusted, which they tell you how to do that, the timing should be at 3 degrees after top dead center, 950 to 1000 revs of engine idling. So that would put the micro switch and R2 back into play. That now moves your timing when you go that 7 degrees after. And that's what they want to see. That should get you very close to that setup when you go to run it. This is their diagram, and this, I can only assume that this is for a European spec car, that they have them in parallel this way. For it to work on this vehicle without the anti-hop switch, it has to go from coil to resistor to R1. From R1 it'll go to the switch. From the switch it'll come back to R2. And these, left side and right side distributors are wired together for the R2 contact points. They both have to go through the micro switch. The R1s do not. So you would have to eliminate that section of wiring to understand this illustration properly. If you're working on a European car, this is exactly probably how it would be wired up. But the American version, it's not. Tons of info on the 3 lobe cams with your specs, how to rebuild everything, but as far as the 12 lobe, you get this and this, and that's about it. They give you an illustration with the anti-hop device, and if you're looking in the update manual that comes with the American version cars that has the wiring diagrams in it, it has that, and it also has 2 7-pin ignition switches, as they're calling it, which are not on this car either. So the build process of this particular model, I'm not sure of, but if I follow my understanding of how a contact breaker point system works, this diagram with the anti-hop system and the way the coils and everything are wired is not correct. Okay, you can't have the ignition coil going right to ground. Something needs to break that circuit to cause the voltage spike to fire the coil. Can't work off of the positive side, because where is it getting its energy from? So you can't always go on their diagrams when they're being translated, because they got something screwed up somewhere in the process. And like I said, I've looked at 4 different cars. Up close and physically was able to kind of crawl around in them. Thankfully, to the owners' good graces of letting me being able to kind of dissect them and see what was where. And like I said, 2 of the cars had one style ignition system, another car had a different style ignition system, and then this client's car, has this system. The one car that I did see with the AC 103 boxes did have the anti-hop system, and I was able to locate where all the wiring was supposed to be, and none of it is on this vehicle. So I can only assume that they started to build it as a Euro spec car, and they made a change order somehow, and they just added a couple things again. Yeah, it'll still work, and it does. So it was an electronic ignition conversion, and we are converting that back to the dual point setup to get the timing changes that they wanted to see to make the cars run. I'm a pretty big advocate on originality for cars of this nature, and having it built the way it left the factory. I've done a full engine bay restoration on this, redid the motor, re-ringed it, You know, we had the heads going over, completely redone all the carburation, media blasted the whole, all the aluminum got walnut shell taken over to get rid of any dirt and materials that weren't supposed to be there. It's coming across. This is our last steps to getting this thing up and running. So hopefully all I'll have to do is bolt these on, hook up a timing light, we'll get our oil pressure, and set our timing. We'll make sure our with the micro switch hooked up that we're at 3 degrees, and we'll disconnect the micro switch and make sure we're at 11 degrees before top dead center. So hopefully this helps with anybody else that might have run across the same scenario. I am by no means an expert, but I'm pretty intimate with this vehicle. So any information that anyone else would have and would like to interject in the comments, please, it is all welcome. Maybe I'm missing something, but I think I have it covered pretty good. The bench was pretty simple. Disregard my 5 degrees there, that was wrong. That's supposed to be 7 degrees. 5 degrees is what they want on the 3 lobe. On the 3 lobe cams, they want to see 5 degrees. On the 6 lobes, they want 7 degrees, just because it operates completely different. So, like I said, any questions, please leave them in the comments. I may or may not be able to answer them. And if you have information to the contrary, same thing, please put it down there. Like I said, this car was not wired for an anti-hop device. And there's going to be some people saying that's not true, but that's true. There is no wiring in this car for anti-hop at all. Alright, have a good day.